Greetings, how are you? I'm glad you guys tuned in today. My name is Pedro. I'm the president of the local ISSA chapter in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And what a pleasure to be here with you today. Hey, I want to talk to you about some simple tools that you could have to secure your cyber presence. I'm calling it the 10 easy steps. And it's funny because most of those you probably already know. So this is what I want to talk to you about, right? So if you look at my agenda, I'm going to talk to you about what are you giving away. And it's funny that I started this way because one of the things I realized is that there's a lot of stuff that I'm giving away to all my profiles, including LinkedIn and Facebook. And we'll talk about that some more because it's a really interesting conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about social media and how that has impacted us and how hackers are using that, criminals are using that really to play against us. And then we're going to talk about some simple issues on how to protect your PC. I've had this document for a long time now called Pedro's 5 Rules for your computer security. Pretty simple, and I think you're going to find it really useful. Of course, I have to talk about passwords, right? So we'll talk a little bit about password management, and then I'll tell you some secrets about passwords that I think you're going to like. And then we're going to play a little game about fake emails and see if you can recognize what they are. Then we'll do two-factor authentication. You knew that was coming, right? And then we'll talk about online purchases. We'll talk about credit report and what you can do now for free. And then I'm going to jump a little bit and we're going to talk about home and how you can protect your home router, your home server, your home setup and the Wi-Fi. Some free tips that I have for you. And then of course, I couldn't end without talking about ransomware, cryptoware, viruses, and how we can protect, how we can prevent, and then how do we can recover, right? So let's talk about item number 1. So let's talk about what are you giving away. And usually that comes out to be, in my case, what I was giving away. So one of the things that made me think about this is when I Googled myself, right? And I started looking at what I can see online. And it was funny because all of the things that I could find under my name came from my LinkedIn profile. So I had to go back, right, and adjust my LinkedIn profile. And I started thinking about, okay, so what information I want to give you, what information I'm giving the world to have as a LinkedIn profile. And the reality is, this is all about money. Remember, we are being the target because of money. Otherwise, this wouldn't have any value, right? Now, how do we control? Well, pretty simple, right? What am I giving away? What's my public profile? And then a couple of tips that I think they're very important. Look at your public profile on LinkedIn. Look at your public profile on Facebook. And I know some of you are going, Pedro, I don't have a Facebook, you know? And I go, yeah, you may not have a Facebook, but your family has a Facebook. Your wife has a Facebook. I don't have a Facebook, but I post my pictures in my wife's, or I post my grandchildren's pictures in my wife's. So yeah, I have a Facebook. It's just not in my name, right? So let's talk about social media. And I say, let's use social media, but let's be careful. This has become our new normal. This is not something that all of a sudden is going to go away. So my tip to you, what are your settings? Remember, we don't have any classes. Nobody tells us, hey, you got to go check your settings. That's not how this works, right? All we do is we go to the bottom of the page of the agreement of every social media site and we click agree. If you don't agree, then you don't get it. So it's not like we have a choice here. Now, we do have a choice in how we change the settings and how we adjust our settings. So for me, the number 1 issue is what can others see in your public preview? And number 2, what does the company gets to have from you? It's funny that many of us on social media never look at settings and all we do is yes, 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 move on. When in reality, we're giving them permission to own and to have and to use anything that we do and everything that we have. Let's be careful, but it is our reality. Another item that I want to bring in especially on social media, is how I've seen lately that you can log in to one website and then it says, oh, by the way, you can use your Facebook login to get in here. You know, I understand technically they're getting a cookie and they're getting sort of a piece of information and it is secure. I personally don't do that. And that's my tip for you. Why do I want a different company to have the credentials, and I go like this because they don't have full credentials, but they have a token, from another site? In my mind, if they get hacked, wouldn't they be able to come over here back and forward? You know what, let's keep it separate. That's just me. By the way, and this is something that I am highly encouraging everybody that I talk to. Look, Microsoft, Apple, Samsung, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Skype, whatever you want to call it, they are not going to call you. They are not going to reach out to you and tell you, hey, your settings are incorrect, or hey, your computer is not working correctly. That is not in their business model. I think this is a message that needs to be conveyed specifically to our parents, specifically to our family members. It's funny, I told this to my dad, and I said, Dad, please, if you get a call from Apple, if you get a call from Microsoft, or if you get a call from whoever, right? Who is your IT guy here? And he goes, well, you. I said, good. Then when something is wrong, you call me. Funny, a couple of weeks after that, he gives me a call. Hey, I just had an hour-long conversation on somebody claiming to be from Microsoft. I just had fun with him because I wanted to talk to somebody because I was alone. And I said, oh my God, what did you do? And he says, I didn't give him any information. He kept asking me, hey, how's your computer? And he goes, oh, it's very bad. My dad doesn't have a computer. My dad is 90. So let's get real here. Still, he had the conversation, and at the end, the guy hung up on him. And he was like, hey, I just wanted to talk to you. And I said, Dad, you should have just hung up the first 30 seconds. And he goes, it's all right. I already knew it was a gimmick. So I just played along. Say, how you doing? How is the sun where you are? Is it raining? Oh, well, very good. I'm glad to talk to you. Funny enough, he knew that it was a con. Yet, many of other parents, many of older folks may not know that. That's the important part, right? So let's talk about two-factor authentication. And I'm bringing this up because honestly, want it or not, look, let's be real. This is the new normal. If you're not using two-factor authentication on every site that you visit, something is not right. I know it is a pain. You got to grab your phone. You have to agree. Maybe you have to use an app to provide. But all we're trying to do is make it harder. Yes, I understand. Two-factor authentication, and a lot of times it could be bypassed, especially if you're receiving a text and I can change your phone number. I get it. But the idea here is to create concentric circles of making it harder, right? We are trying to make something a little harder. So when we try to make it harder, guess what? Whoever's trying to attack you is going to go, I don't have time for that. There's another 5 million people that don't have that. I'm going to go attack them. So it's kind of funny that I'm saying this, but it works. So I am encouraging everyone, every website, every bank that you go to, please turn on your two-factor authentication. Every single social media just about has two-factor authentication. If you do not, you're going to get hacked. It is that simple. Some people are probably sometimes telling me, you know, Pedro, I am not technically savvy. I don't know how to do the two-factor. There are two great websites that I have here on the slides, TwoFactor Auth.org. And if not, Google how to do two-factor authentication. One of the things that I loved was this issue of pictures and this issue of step-by-step that I found really cool. Anybody can do this. They have become really easy to follow instructions, okay? So next thing, let's talk about how to protect your PC. And this is my little Pedro's 5 rules, right? Pretty simple. You know this. And it's funny because if you follow this, I think you protect a lot of your stuff. Use a router, right? If you have a router at home, a wireless routing, please make sure that it is WPA2. And now we have a new one, WPA3. The other thing that I always talked about is check your settings. Change the default, right? The next thing is keep your PC updated. So here's something that I do. I probably have 5 or 6 PCs in my house, right? So Saturday mornings, for me and my house, it's like my time. I grab my cup of coffee. I go through the PCs. Make sure that they are automatically getting the updates. Make sure that everything is up to date. I grab my wife's phone, my wife's iPad. Hey, have you been updating this? And she just looks at me and goes, that's not my problem. That's your problem. You're the IT guy here. So guess what? I take on that responsibility and I take care of it. Antivirus software. You know, it's funny, just about every Windows 10 and on has Defender. It works. But really, if that's not what you have, Avast, AVG, free, they work. As a matter of fact, I read an article, Consumer Reports says a couple of years ago said, hey, we're gonna do a side-by-side review of antivirus. Funny enough, they came out of a conclusion that said, you know, these free ones, they may not have all the bells and whistles, but it works. It actually puts them a pair with the ones that you paid. And for me, that's money in my bank. Make sure the firewall is enabled. Sometimes by default it may not be. It's a simple set. All you have to do is check, do a little search, firewall, right? Bring your settings. Make sure that it's on. And then here's the most important part. How many of you have a backup of all your data? Now let's be honest. I know some of you probably have 1,500 pictures of cats. I get it. I understand. That's important to you. And I use cats, but in reality, for some of you, it may be pictures of your parents. It may be pictures of your wedding. It may be pictures of your grandchildren. So now my question is, are you willing to lose those pictures? And I know some of you are going to go like, Pedro, I don't think you understand. Absolutely not. And I said, good. So now let me ask another question that is really going to drive this home. How long do you think a computer was made to operate? Some of you are probably thinking, well, you know, my laptop or my desktop is probably 3, maybe 4 years old. Guess what? You are at its maximum usable time. Meaning that at any time, that hard drive can die. Sometimes you could recover it, but 9 out of 10 times, your data got lost. So the other day, I wanted to buy an external hard drive. And I said, well, you know, I'm going to get a terabyte. I'm going to go splurge and spend money. What a surprise. For less than $100, I was able to get a terabyte external hard drive. I was able to back up every single computer in my house. So now, even if one hard drive dies, all I have to do is bring it back up, put the image back in. Really simple process. I could even download a startup disk and then use my hard drive to put the data in. That's my way to safeguard my important pictures. I think it's important, and I think you should look into that. Next item is how to protect your home for free, right? I want to talk about 2 things. First, OpenDNS, and the second one is Cloudflare. So let's talk about OpenDNS first. So in the slides, you can see how to set up. And by the way, OpenDNS provides this for free. I like for free, so I'm happy about this. And then one of the things that really impressed me about OpenDNS is this ability that you change your DNS in your router at home so that once you connect to home, everything gets routed through there. Protected, it keeps you from getting to sites that you may not have. As a matter of fact, I have a quick note in this. One of their DNS settings prevents pornography. And I'm just going to be black and white with you. I wish I had this when my teenage son was at home. Because, like perhaps many of you, I got home one day and I looked at one of my computers and I'm like, dude, what is this? What is going on here? And he just looks at me like, oh, I don't know. It just appeared. Really? No, I don't think so. That's not how that works, right? So by having OpenDNS, I could have prevented that. And it's not the issue of the pornography, it's what happens behind the scenes. right? It's all these other doors that I'm opening up for garbage to get into my computers. The second item that I want to talk to you about is this new thing called Cloudflare. And the easiest way is to Google 1.1.1 for families. And it's this new DNS that is literally 1111, right? But one of the nicest things that they do is the same setup that OpenDNS does. You can actually log in, you can actually have a little portal where you can say what settings you want changed, but it also provides free content, free blocking domains, you know, the sexuality, the pornography. So I think it's great. I think that is an extra level of protection for your home and for your family. Passwords. Well, you knew it. You knew I needed to talk about passwords, right? But let me tell you a couple of things that I think are critical in passwords. And you can see it here on the slides, right? Work password must be kept separate. And let me explain this, because some of you are like, you know, Pedro, my work wants me to change it every 90 days, or every 100 days, or every 30 days, or once a year. Here's why I'm saying that work password should be unique and different. If they get hacked, you will get hacked. Here's the other side. If you get compromised, work gets compromised. Now let's think about this, because work will probably never find out that you got compromised, but perhaps that's the same password that you use for your paycheck, or your HR benefits. Now you understand why I really want to make a distinction about passwords, right? By the way, I know you probably have 30 different accounts today with passwords. And for some of us, I know 30 is just the tip of the iceberg. I probably have 200 because, I don't know about you, but I'm the password keeper at the house. Nobody could remember the password. And they're always asking me, Dad, what is this? Or, hey, hon, what's the password for what? And I'm like, you have the app on your phone. Look it up. And they just look at me like I'm from Mars. Anyhow, because of that, I use a password manager. And that's what I'm telling you. Look, at this point, I really don't care what password manager you use. You can use KeePass, you can use LastPass, Lookout, Keeper, Dashlane. There's some other ones out there, OnePass, Password One. It really doesn't matter. The idea is that you keep all your passwords in one place. And I know some of you are like, Pedro, I don't know about that, because if my password manager gets compromised, I'm screwed. And I said, well, you know what? That's actually to your advantage. Here's what I'm really saying. Your password manager should have a long 16, 20 character passwords. That it's probably an easy thing to make. Then you can change that password every 90 days. That's the only password that you really have to protect. All the other passwords, the password manager can actually manage for you. Actually, some password managers, and by the way, I'm using LastPass, they can actually tell me, hey, did you want me to create a random password for you and I'll manage it? So every time I'm going to that website, I just pull my LastPass and I go, yeah, here's the password. And it puts it into the field. For me, that's an easy way to manage my passwords, right? Now, I did say the longer the password, the better. I get it. I understand this is not hard, not easy to remember, but there are some tips that you can do. By the way, the longer the password, the better they are. It is that simple. It has proven, it's been proven that if you do anything of 14 digits and more, you really make your passwords extremely hard to break. And the reality is, for most of us, what we want is a password that could last 3, 4, 5 years. As a matter of fact, some of us, all we want is a password that lasts 90 days, right? So we can change it again. So I give you an example, and I use a phone number, right? A very common phone number. Perhaps you can use a phone number of when you were a little kid. That's my experience. When I was a little kid, I had to memorize my home password. My home phone number. My mom wouldn't let me leave the house. So for me, That's an easy way to remember. Now, you could use your aunts, your uncles, your grandfathers. I don't care. That phone number probably doesn't even start. As a matter of fact, some of you may remember your phone number started with 3 letters and then 4 digits. Good. I'm dating, but who knows that today? No one. Yet you have it recorded on your memory. That may be a great way to put a password in the middle. By the way, if you want to check your password, I like a website from grc.com, and it's the Haystack. You can create a lookalike password like the ones you're creating, and then you can see how long would it take to break, to force, brute force. So it's kind of neat to play with it, because then you can change letters and number and find out how to make the strongest password on something you can remember. The easiest way is to break your password into a passphrase, right? 3 different random names or numbers that mean something to you, but nobody else. Easy peasy. This is not complicated. So for now, we're still in the password mode. We don't have a choice. Let's make it fun. So let's jump a little bit and let's steer away from passwords. And now let's talk about phishing email. Look, I don't know about you, but we can't get away from this. And here's a reason why we cannot get away from this. It has been proven already that 80 to 90% of all hacks, especially the BES ones, the ones that ask for money, right? And money transfer, they all start with an email phish. And if you notice in my slides, there's like 6, 7 things that you can pick up just about on every phishing email, right? Always a sense of urgency, always some kind of a URL, spelling, grammar, personal, always something about money, because duh, that's the ultimate thing, right? And then they always want to make it official. A friend of mine from a different company that I don't work for actually told me, Pedro, my CEO was given a conference in a different state and at a different place. And they were actually watching our social media. They were actually watching his movements. So when he left to the conference, he was being targeted with phishing emails. The finance department back home received a bunch of emails about, hey, it's me, so-and-so. I have an urgent request. I forgot. I need you to transfer this amount of money to this account. I made this deal last night. This is, please make this happen. Well, the finance department already had a heads up that, this always happens when he leaves town. So what they did, pretty simple. They picked up the phone. Hey, boss, I just got this email. He goes, nope, it was not me. Thank you for calling me. That simple. And I know what happens in a lot of corporate environments. In some corporate environments, that phone call is not welcome. Yet, funny enough, that phone call can save you millions of dollars. So those of you CEOs are there that are preventing your people from calling you, especially in the finance department, welcome that. Just tell them, here's my cell phone. If you get an email from me, you call me. It'll prevent you from having these, transfers of money. Just my 2 cents. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about, online debit and credit. This is a funny one. And I know some of you are like, Pedro, what are you talking about here? And I'm like, well, I just want to make sure that we're clear here. And I know most of you understand this. But it's funny, as I used to give some of these talks to some of my folks in the field, I got a different impression of what they were doing. For example, I have older folks that told me, Pedro, not only do I don't own a credit card, I do not want to use credit card. I want to use my debit card, and I want to pay everything cash because I am financially independent. And I said, I applaud that. I think that is fantastic. Except you have a habit of ordering parts for your car. And he goes, yeah, I got my 69 Camaro out and back. I'll show you. It's pretty cool. And I said, so how do you order all your parts? Well, on mail or online. And he goes, well, I use my debit card. And I went, really? So let's talk about debit cards for a minute, right? And I said, so your debit card is attached to your checking account? And he goes, yes, because I don't want a credit card. And I said, so if I hack your debit card, I'll take all your money from the checking account. And he just stood there and kind of looked at me like, well, yeah, but you know, I bank at my credit union, and my credit union tells me that my funds are safe, and they're going to prove to me that I could get my money back. And I told him, you are absolutely correct. That will do that. And then I said, but did you understand that that takes from 2 to 6 weeks? And he was like, what do you mean? That's not the next day? And I'm like, no! So my question is, can you live without cash, because it's in your checkbook, for 2, 3, 5, 6 weeks, or until your next paycheck comes? And he just kind of went, well, no, because I got to put gas. Aha! So now you're really screwed. And he just kind of looked at me and goes, oh, so how do I fix this? So here's my 2 cents. If you don't have a credit card that is just for online purchases, get one. Get a $1,000 credit card, credit limit. That's all you need. Use that one card to make all your online purchases. Buy what you need. If you don't want to have the credit, if you don't want to have the balance, then you can pay it. Then you can transfer money to that credit card. That's the only card that is out on the internet, that phone number, or that credit card number, it's being used. Here's the advantage of this. If you get hacked by XYZ reason, something happened, it just doesn't work, right? You are not out of your money. The credit card company is. And now what you can do, it's literally fight with them. They're probably going to do a review. They're probably going to do a check. And then they're going to tell you, oh yeah, we found out that this was a hack. So here we are. We're going to give you your money back. In the meantime, your real money, cash, right, checking account, is safe. You didn't have to do all this. So that was my 2 cents for them. By the way, those of you that like to learn more about credit cards, I put a link on the bottom of the slides, and it's this thing called the Long algorithm. It's how credit card numbers are made. It's going to make you mad, because most of us think that our credit card numbers are super secret. Nah, they're not. The first 8 digits of the 16-digit of a Visa number are public numbers. It has to be, in order for them to route to charge the right account, right? So all I got to do is kind of look over your shoulder when you're putting gas and see that you have my friends from Tinker Credit Union, or right, Chase or Bank of America, any of the banks. And then on the receipt, it has the last 4 digits of your credit card, right? And you never pick up that receipt. You always leave it there. So I come right behind you, I grab the receipt. Now I know what bank you use, and I have the last 4. So now the only thing I need is the center, the third piece of 4-digit numbers. And you may say, well, Pedro, you know, that's 9,999 numbers. Nope. It's an algorithm. It is not. Easy to do, easy to transpose, easy to guess. The security on credit cards comes in your pocket. It is you that keep it secure. One of the habits that we have in the United States is this issue that when we go to a restaurant, we just met the waitress for 15 minutes. We get a bill, we pull our wallets, we pull our credit cards, and we just go, here, go pay it. And they go to what I call the black room, the black hole. Right? They go out there somewhere in the back and run the card, blah, 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 this, that, the other. Well, this is probably how some of these cards are being double swipe, right? And then you probably have noticed in some of the newer restaurants or the upscale restaurants that are there now, you get to pay at the table, or they bring you the portable card and you can do it all there. What we're trying to do is we're trying to eliminate the credit card from leaving you. Why? Because the security is on me. It's in my possession. All right, so now let's talk about credit reports, right? And some of you are probably saying, Pedro, really? Credit report? Why are we talking about this? And I said, well, you know, a couple of years ago, some of the rules changed. And now you can actually free lock and unlock your credit report. Now, some of you are probably going, what does this have to do with security? Because you can prevent somebody else from opening credit on your account. That's the ultimate hack. If I can create, and if I could buy a car in your name, on your credit, guess what? Now you have to prove that you did not. And some of the people that I have talked to that this has happened to them, it's funny. They always tell me, Pedro, I was guilty until I can prove that I was innocent. The system doesn't work like we think it does. First of all, you got to hire a lawyer because you cannot do it on your own. But number two is you are on the hook for whatever purchases somebody else did until you prove that you're not guilty. So I've given you on the slides the website of the Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. By the way, Krebs on Security has a great explanation of what happened and why we can do this now as consumers without paying, for free and easy to do. My credit is frozen. I have gone through the 3 major ones and I have frozen my credit. In the last 2 years, I have to unfreeze it twice. Pretty simple. Took me like 20 minutes. I logged in, did one, logged in, did the other one, logged in, did the third one. It wasn't a big deal. One of them I did at the dealership using my phone. So this is not a big deal. Yes, it takes a minute or two, but the reality is it gives me peace of mind. Remember, what are we trying to do? We're trying to put blocks so that your stuff is safe. This is a huge recommendation for all of you out there. Please freeze your credit. That way nobody can mess with it. I have a great story about an HR manager, good friend of mine, that told me, Pedro, the first day that I went to work at a new company, this particular company does a credit check. And I told him, absolutely, go do a credit check. When they did a credit check, what they found out is that there was an arrest warrant for her for unpaid checks. And she was all concerned about, what? So when they did a little more review, they realized that somebody had opened credit on her name, wrote some checks, opened a checking account, this, that, the other. It took her 2 years to get her records straight, and that's where she found out I was guilty. I needed to prove that I was not. So, I'm just giving you my 2 cents. This is a great thing to do, especially now that you don't have to pay, that you don't have to do anything special, and that is easy to you. So, let's talk about this issue about you're always connected. And I'm making a little segue here because I want you to start thinking about all the pictures that I'm showing you on the slides, right? So from the time we get up to the time we go to bed, we live in a connected world. Some of us, the alarm clock, the coffee maker, the scale. I have a scale that connects, right? Our cars. As a matter of fact, it's funny. I have rented many cars, and now I ask, does it have the Apple Play so I can connect my phone, right, and use it? And if it doesn't, I'm just like, can I substitute for something else, please? Why? Because I'm connected. I don't want to go like this. In some states, this is even not allowed. I want to use the hands-off. Obviously, air conditioner systems and printers and faxes and TVs and microwaves and refrigerators. And let me go back to TVs. Can we buy a TV today that is not a smart TV? It's funny. I went to the store the other day because I wanted to buy a TV to put on the outside of my house and the patio. And I said, all I want is TV. I don't want the rest of the smart stuff because I'm probably going to use one of the network devices, a Roku or something that I can plug in. Funny, I went from low scale 32-inch to high scale 80-inch. Every single one was a smart TV. And I was like, wow, is there an option to turn it off? And the person that was helping me said, well, no. We assume you want this. And I'm like, wow, interesting. So let me know. If you find one that is not smart, send me an email, send me a note, because it's just funny. All I wanted was a TV that was just a regular TV. But it's funny because it actually highlights how we are connected from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed. Now, here's the last slide that I really want to talk to you guys about. And it's this issue about ransomware, crypto lock, viruses. And look, I'm just going to make it very simple. You have two options. You either avoid it as much as you can, or you recover. Well, yes, there is a third option: you pay. Ooh. Not my most favorite option, and unless you didn't have a choice, I probably wouldn't do that. But I think if you follow the notes that I have on the slides, this will make sense. So how do you avoid? Well, number one, you got to have a backup, right? You got to safeguard the 1,500 pictures of cats that you have. You can't just let that stuff go away. You got to have an antivirus. You got to have no administrative access to your PC. Things that you can do to avoid, right? But let's say that you cannot avoid. It happened, you got crypto locked. So now how do you recover? Well, two options. You pay or you re-image. Well, I don't want to pay no cryptocurrency thousands of dollars. It's just not happening. So I re-image. How do I re-image? With the backup that I did. I had a coworker that came to me. Says, Pedro, I have a laptop. It is my wife's dissertation. She is going on her last year. All her work is here. And I kind of stepped back and said, you have a backup of all this. You have an external hard drive. You have a USB that you keep all your data. And he just looked at me and goes, no, it's all here. And I was like, oh, okay, so what are you going to do? And he goes, I don't have a backup. And I said, well, sir, there's only one option to you. Pay. He did. In his case, it was like $600 and some. And guess what? He got lucky. His decoding key actually worked. First thing he did, grab his data, put it in an external USB. He got lucky. He was one of the few ones that paying the ransomware worked. I've seen many others where you paid and they'll just look at you like, yeah, so you did. Goodbye, have a nice day. Look, this is a business. Many of this ransomware and crypto locks now have a 1-800 number where you can call. They'll help you. Why? Because they want your money. So let's prevent that from happening through a backup. Folks, it's pretty simple. This is a quick summary of the 10 easy things to do to secure your cyber presence. Honestly, and I know some of you are probably laughing by now because they're like, well, I knew 7 of those. That's exactly right. But it's funny because this is what is making you being a target. What have we talked about today? Simple. I just gave you some tools, right? On social media, on protecting your PC, OpenDNS, passwords, email, two-factor authentication, the credit cards, all of that is just tools to put in your toolbox. Nothing more than how to protect you. Nothing more than how to protect your family. Look, it has been a pleasure for me to be able to be with you, to be in this conference. My name is Pedro Serrano. I am a member of the ISSA and the president of ISSA Oklahoma. It has been a pleasure. We have questions. I will be online answering all your questions. I want to give a special thanks to Kenneth because he was able to record this for me. His email address or his website is at the bottom of the slides. Anything you need and anything recording wise, give him a call, go to his website, he'll hook you up. Guys, thank you for having me here. What a pleasure.